All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, the play-by-play voice of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Chris Burgin, to get you ready for a big one coming up on Saturday night. Chris, we appreciate your time. How you doing?
Clip, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you guys having me on. I've made the rounds. I was on another podcast earlier, chatted with Jim Zoki just a little while ago, so I appreciate you guys inviting me as well.
Yes, sir. And it's good. You're doing the Super Bowl Radio Row car wash this week, and man, Jim's an awesome guy. We're happy to have him, even if it's part time, but filling in as our play-by-play voice these last few seasons. He's a great fella to talk to, and love him on the broadcast. And you'll be on the call on the Coastal side coming up Saturday night. And Chris, I can't really wrap my head around. I was just talking to Holt Nailers about this, who beat Coastal Carolina in a bowl game not that long ago, just kind of where the program was then and where they are now. And trust me, we understand the roller coaster of a football program, the ups and downs. But how did Coastal kind of get to this 0-2 point where they're looking for some answers, especially on offense?
First off, Holton's not coming Saturday to play, correct?
He is not suiting up. Yeah.
Saw enough of him at Birmingham. What a terrific performance that was, and it was fun to watch. Difficult to swallow, but it was certainly fun to watch several years ago. The program is in flux. There's no other way to phrase it. 61 new players into the program this year. I think we had over 70 in last year. I mean, it's just the current setup in college football, and it's probably affected CCU as much as anywhere. And the problem has been this season evenly divided in terms of the new players and freshmen and transfers, about 30 on one side, 30 on the other. But quarterback play has been the issue thus far, and that's the issue. I mean, we joke about Holton Ahlers, but when you have a guy like him, you can win football games. And Coastal right now just has not been able to find a quarterback that they want to run the air raid offense that Drew Hollingshead was brought in from Western Kentucky to produce on the field. Part of that issue, Clip, is you have a situation where Emmett Brown was probably the guy that they wanted to be quarterback. He gets hurt midway through preseason camp. He's out for the rest of the year. So they have to go to plan B. And you had a situation where MJ Morris, Samari Collier, and also Tad Hudson, who started and played in the bowl game last year for Coastal in the Myrtle Beach Bowl against UTSA, and basically was out there on an island by himself because the majority of our guys had jumped into the transfer portal to exited themselves out of town. So just not a very good performance. So Tad was the incumbent starter, if you will, but he's having to learn a new offense. And so Emmett appeared to be the guy that they wanted to run the air raid. Seemed like he fit it perfectly. So MJ wins the job after Emmett goes down and he beats out the other guys. And MJ's just struggled. There's just no real easy way to put this. He struggled. He threw an interception against Virginia, really didn't have a whole lot of help in that game against the Cavaliers. Tough to move the football against them to begin with. And then last week, just threw inexplicably bad passes. He had 3 interceptions all in the red zone against Charleston Southern. That's part of the reason that game was 13-0 and not somewhere probably where it should have been, like 40-0 or similar to your result, East Carolina's result against Campbell. That's how that game should have gone. But until that aspect is corrected, Coastal's going to struggle because they just don't have enough offensive continuity to go with what has been a pretty good defense thus far this season.
Yeah, and it will get corrected. Coastal hoping it's sooner rather than later. I'm worried it could happen this weekend. I've said all week that this has, a close game in the fourth quarter written all over it, and we'll talk about the expected atmosphere there in a moment. But the injury happened pretty late into the offseason and close to the regular season, right? And we've seen how that's affected East Carolina in years past, but maybe if that unfortunate injury happens like in December, we're talking about something different here. You kind of had to scramble before the season, right?
Well, if it happens, let's say in December, you also have time to go into the transfer portal and pick and choose a quarterback that could come in and fill in the role and run the air raid offense the way that Drew Hollingshead wants. I'm just not sure that we have that guy right now. And my guess is Coach Beck hinted at it a little bit yesterday that Tad Hudson will more than likely get the start on Saturday, and we'll see how things go from there. But, I mean, it's unfortunate when you're -5 in the turnover margin where Coastal is right now through 2 ball games. They sit 130th in FBS football. Really hard to beat anybody. And like I said, the Virginia game probably got out of hand a little bit more than it should have, not because of turnovers, but because of special teams play. They ran a kickoff back for a touchdown. They blocked a punt, set up a short field for them. So made it a lot easier on their offense. And Chandler Morris didn't need any help. We needed him to go about 80 yards every time, and he probably could have done that. But our defense has actually played pretty well. First shutout is, I think I may have mentioned earlier, since Halloween of 2020 that they pitched this past week. But you start to wonder how much longer that defense can continue to go out there and get stops and continue to play with the effort they have been when they realize, guys, we may have to throw a shutout against everybody to have a chance to win.
Yeah. Chris, how about if this offense is going like it should, who are the skill guys to watch out for Pirate fans coming up on Saturday?
Well, before the season began, Clip, the coach was talking about running possibly 9 wide receivers out there. He may start to narrow that just a little bit, but some of the guys that have been back in the fold, you've got a guy like Bryson Graves, who's a fairly local product from over in Florence, which is about an hour west of Conway. So he's a local guy. You have Cam Wright, who's a big physical type wide receiver. You have Jamison Tucker, who's a great story, a kid that walked onto the program, now is a captain. And a guy that also plays on special teams, has played on special teams throughout his career. Those are the guys we should be able to rely on. But the problem is, haven't been able to get them the football to see what they can do. Then you've got some younger guys in the program, and Robbie Washington, who has checked in, along with Malcolm Gilley, who you'll also see on special teams in terms of the either punt or kickoff return. So there are some explosive players in terms of the offense in the wide receiving core. They just haven't been able to make their presence known. You can look at our numbers. Passing numbers are just minimal at best. Now, the running back room is probably the most pleasant surprise offensively. There are probably 5 guys that we can run out there. Dominic Nicely almost rushed for 100 yards this past weekend against Charleston Southern. He's a guy that the coaches were extremely high on in camp. He's a freshman. It's sort of unusual. I don't know how long he'll be able to stay here. It's tough to keep freshmen that are talented at G5 level programs, but he's been a really nice addition. You've got Jalen John, you've got Javon Edwards, and then you also have Javen Simpkins, who is a returnee. So a pretty good stable of running backs. And if we could take a little bit of pressure off of them by throwing the football better, I think the run game would open up. And the run game was very successful against Charleston Southern a week ago.
Chris Burgin joining us. Chris, looking at ECU's offense, not a lot of critiques right now in the passing game. It's looked really good with Caden Hauser at the helm. Even after the blowout, we had calls on the post-game show, the U.S. Sailor fifth quarter call-in show, about still nervous about the run game. And so how about with Coastal Carolina? You say, I've heard many people from that side say the defense is the strength of this Chanticleers team. What is the strength on the defense? Would you say, pass rush, secondary, D-line? Well, what's your answer to that?
It is probably the front 7 right now. Yeah. And they play, and I use that term because that's what fans recognize, but Coastal's more of a 3-3-5 setup. They've got a guy who's sort of a hybrid linebacker, a safety that they hope to be able to use him to stop the run and also cover. But so far, I think the front 3 have surprised a lot of people with how well they have played, sort of led by a young man who's in the program, Zeke Campbell, who came over from Louisiana Tech. He's a transfer in with Jeremiah Johnson, who's the new defensive coordinator. He did a fantastic job at Louisiana Tech last year and brought several of his guys, including several of his coaches, with him. Zeke had 2 tackles for loss, a sack and a half against Charleston Southern. The linebacking core, though, if you directly wanted to ask me where the strength is, that's where it is. And it starts with Shane Bruce in the middle. He's number 1 that you'll see all over the place. Will make tackles left and right. He's a captain, and he's a guy who's been in the program for a long time. He's sort of a unicorn that he stayed at Coastal as long as he has. And he's a terrific player, preseason All Sun Belt second team selection. And then you add Wyatt Gettian over to his side, one of the other linebackers who was hurt tail end of last year, and is working his way back. But I would say those guys that I mentioned, especially in the linebacking room, that's probably the strength of the team. And so far, they've done a terrific job of it. They weren't able to put as much pressure on Chandler Morris as you would expect. First off, Virginia's offensive line is pretty solid. And secondly, that kid can move. They made life a lot more miserable for Zoltan Osborne last week, the Charleston Southern quarterback. So how they'll get after the guys this weekend from ECU remains to be seen. And I know Tim Beck is extremely, extremely high on Caden Hauser, just the job he has done, and some of the wide receivers you guys have, especially Anthony Smith. He directly pointed him out to me because he knows Anthony from when he played at NC State. So he knows the Blitnikoff Award watch list member. He knows how talented he is. So they're hoping they can put some pressure on Hauser, because if not, chances are he's going to be able to get it out to those wideouts on the side.
Chris Burgin joining us. Chris, you mentioned special teams earlier. That's still kind of TBD for me when it comes to ECU, Jarrett. We've had, what, 2 kickers, 2 punters we've already seen so far this year, and still trying to figure out exactly what we've got there. But how about on the Coastal side? You said it was, I guess, a negative previously, but how about overall for the Chanticleers?
Now, in terms of just the physical kicking, it has not been all that bad. As a matter of fact, Emil Sebafundi, the punter, his average this past week was 52 yards. He actually had a 61-yard punt against Charleston Southern.
Wow.
And so far this year, averaging right around 43 yards a kick. So he's done a nice job punting the football and just haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to kick extra points and field goals. But in terms of the actual guys who execute that, they've played well. So I think special teams, if you guys are struggling a little bit in the punting room, that might actually be a strength and a positive in Coastal's side of the coin. It was not last week because Charleston Southern had one of the best punters in the country in Gilbert Brown. Right after Emil hit his 61-yard punt, Brown answered with an 82-yard punt, if you can believe it. So kind of gives you an idea of how defensive-minded that game was last Saturday.
Chris, looking forward to the environment we've had in Conference USA back in the day and the American. There's been some dead road environments, and East Carolina has stubbed their toe maybe as a road favorite in those environments. And the players I've talked to over the years say they'd much rather barely be able to hear than have it echoing, throughout the an empty Superdome back in the day when they'd play
right.
Tulane. So for that reason, I'm excited about this game this weekend. We saw the baseball atmosphere. It looked like a freaking party down there. Had a lot of coworkers go. I did not. I watched it on TV, and it looked insane. It looked like Woodstock '99 or something at times. But how about the football? We already got people heading down there from Pirate Radio. I've talked to a ton of Pirate fans who are making the trip. So should be a festive atmosphere Saturday night.
It's funny you referenced the baseball atmosphere, and it is. They've done a terrific job over at Springsburg Stadium, and clearly the program has responded as well. But I remember coming up several years ago when we played in Greenville for an NCAA regional, and Joe Katz, who handles the radio play-by-play for us at CCU, does for baseball, and he's also our sideline reporter. He and I were just blown away by the football-like atmosphere for baseball.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this is the beginning of constantly being able to play East Carolina in football, because I think it makes a lot of sense. It's hard to believe this will just be the second meeting between the two programs and the first home and home type scenario.
Yeah.
If you scratch out the bowl game back in a couple of years ago in Birmingham, but I think the atmosphere will be outstanding. We had over 22,000 at the game for Charleston Southern, which actually set a record for most fans in attendance. They were able to eat, I think the school likes me getting this out, they were able to eat 27,000 hot dogs, which is part of the free concessions promotion. So I think, that included in the package, the ticket package, East Carolina fans, if you want, just make sure you download the Chanticleer app, and you'll be able to walk through, pick up the concessions. And it's just a very easy translation. You start on one end, go all the way through the buffet line, and come out the other side and go get your condiments and go right back to your seat. I think that was what the plan was. They had a drone show at halftime, which was really cool. They've worked in pyrotechnics into the team's entrance before the ball game. So Chance Miller, the new athletics director, the one mission he had when he first took over was to increase the fan experience of football, and I think he has done it tenfold. The students have come out in droves in the likes that we haven't seen in years, going back to the heyday in FCS football. So I think the atmosphere, and then you throw in East Carolina on top of that, because I know the Pirates will bring a ton of people. I think it's going to be terrific. One of the better atmospheres we'll see all season on Saturday.
I really hope the free concession thing works out, is here to stay, and is something that other schools take note of, because just being fan friendly and costs going down in 2025 is awesome to hear. It is not what you normally hear. So sounds like so far so good, and
Yes.
and Pirate fans will be able to experience that this weekend.
Exactly. And I think if you watch or have heard of the Savannah Bananas, I'm sure
Yeah.
you have, and your listeners and video watchers have as well. That was sort of the template. I think Chance Miller talked with their ownership group and sort of got the idea, all right, how do you guys execute this? Because what we wanted was fans to come not just one time, but want them to come multiple times.
Right.
And I think on both sides of the coin, ticket sales were up. So they obviously got to come in and experience the game and then go through the free concessions. And from all I understand, it went extremely well. on Saturday. So hopefully that is not something fans go back and say, yeah, it was fun, but man, the free concessions just didn't work. It appears that it worked extremely well, and so hopefully they'll come back. Now the football team has got to do its part,
right,
and got to go out and play considerably better, and we'll need to on Saturday, because this will not be an easy game, even if we play well, much less if we play like we have the first 2 weeks.
Obviously, Coastal Athletics has had a lot of success, but me being the age I am, I still think Mike Tolbert and Josh Norman, when I hear Coastal Carolina, those guys, do they ever come around? You ever hear or see of those names, Chris?
Actually, before I took over as the play-by-play voice, I was the sideline reporter, and Mike was enshrined into the Coastal Athletic Hall of Fame many, many years ago. He was at the game, obviously, and I got a chance to chat with him. Super, super guy. Being a Panthers fan myself, I'm glad you pointed out those two guys. And the field house where the team dresses and the coaches' offices and the like. It is the Norman Fieldhouse, named after both Josh and Mario Norman. And Mario was Josh's brother. And Josh actually gave, if I understand the story correctly, Josh gave a donation to the university to have the Fieldhouse named after them. But he wanted more to publicize his brother than him. I mean, obviously, everybody knows the exploits of Josh Norman, one of the best defensive backs in Coastal history. But if I'm trying to go back and think, I think it is the Mario and Josh Norman Fieldhouse. Josh wanted to make sure that Mario's name got put up first to give an idea of how much he cares about his brother. So just super guys. And they come back. And then, you've got Grayson McCall and Trey Carter on the current staff, former players, and everybody. Grayson McCall, of course, ECU fans will remember, was the guy opposite Holt Nailers at the Birmingham Bowl until he got hurt. So Grayson's been a godsend to the program, both as a player and now working with the wide receivers. So, yeah, a lot of the players try and come back and hang around the program. But those two guys in particular, I think, have made a major influence on CCU football.
Chris Burgin joining us. Chris, I really enjoyed the chat, man. We'll wrap it up here. It's going to click for Coastal, and I'm super nervous it happens Saturday night. But what kind of game are you expecting? And how about this? Coastal Carolina gets the home win if what happens? Fill in that blank.
Well, the first off, and again, I think it sounds cliche, but if we don't turn the football over, I mean, it's going to make it a lot easier. Now, we could play a perfect game and still lose. That's how good and how much respect the coaching staff has for East Carolina. But I think, obviously, cutting down on the turnovers, getting that offense in gear, and having the defense maybe help out a little bit. The defense got an interception against Charleston Southern, but really didn't set up a short field. Maybe a defensive score would certainly help Coastal and keep the fans engaged. They kind of lost interest on Saturday, as you can understand. I mean, it was a 3-0 game going late into the third quarter. So, and normally in years past, that would have been a big deal against Charleston Southern, because that was the rivalry back in the Big South days between Coastal and Charleston Southern. But now that Coastal's gone up to FBS, not nearly the same energy in the building. So need to keep the fans engaged. And I think the turnover battle is going to be critically important. If Coastal can find a way to hang on to the football, to give themselves a chance. Now, whether or not it's enough remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is a really, really important game, certainly from our perspective, because Sun Belt Conference play begins next week. And our only other non-conference game is right before the end of the season at South Carolina. So this is the non-conference season, which has been very, very difficult. First year that Coastal has played 2 Power 4 programs in the same year, and then you've got a really, really good East Carolina team. So the non-conference schedule has not been a piece of cake, and the next week at South Alabama won't be easy.
And, Chris, before we wrap it up, maybe one more question you can answer for me, just to maybe ease the pain of my Panthers buddies, and from a gambling standpoint too. The Panthers aren't as bad as they looked week 1, right? Like, they're going to be okay, maybe?
Oh, boy. I should have asked Jim when I was talking with him earlier today, because Jim would have a better idea. And knowing how blunt and honest he is, he would probably say the same thing I'm about to say. No, they are as bad as I think they looked Saturday or Sunday. I'm afraid, because I don't think Jacksonville's world beaters, and they just made Carolina look bad. I'm just not sure what the Panthers are trying to do, both offensively and defensively. And until they get that figured out, it could be a long year, and it's tough, because as you can see in the background, got Panthers helmets all over the place in my game room. So, big time Panthers fan. Grew up in Western North Carolina, not far from Charlotte. So, grew up a Dolphins fan. But when the Panthers finally got an NFL franchise, I said, "All right, I'm pulling for the home team." But boy, it's been a challenge ever since Cam Newton left.
Well, as a Washington fan, I remembered the Bills Super Bowl, but I didn't appreciate it or know what I was watching that much, really. But I never made the switch to the Panthers. Sometimes I feel like I should. You being a Dolphins fan, you might have made the right choice. I don't know what's better or worse right now, being a Panthers fan or a Dolphins fan. So,
well, I've never forgiven them. They can say whatever they want to that Don Shula retired. They fired him so they could get Jimmy Johnson, and so the only thing that was holding me on there was Dan Marino, because I was a huge Marino fan. And once he retired, I really didn't have any other interest in dealing with the Dolphins. And about that time, the Panthers came along, so I had an easy transition over for the NFL fandom.
Good deal. Chris, enjoyed the chat, man. Let's do it again down the road. Have a great call on Saturday night, and we'll talk to you again, man.
Clip, appreciate it, and certainly look forward to having all you guys down on Saturday. Should be a lot of fun along the beach.